morning, good day, how are you? Welcome along to the channel. Thanks a lot for dropping in. Today we're talking about the Canon EOS-R MultiFunction Bar. It's a one-time only deal. It only appeared on the EOS-R, so if you've got one, you're one of the lucky few. Lucky few? Okay, let's talk about this. I'm dropping in to talk to you about the Canon EOS-R and more specifically the multifunction bar on the back of it. I've looked all over the internet. I've looked on YouTube, I've looked on Google, I've looked on, well, the point of it is everywhere I've looked on the internet, this thing has been widely panned. You know, hugely panned. People just don't like it. They don't appreciate what it does on the camera. It's definitely going to be a one-time thing because, as we know, on the newer models of the R series coming out, there's going to be a new joystick in that position. But hey, I'm not so nonplussed about this multifunction bar as a lot of other people on the internet. I reckon it's okay, and I'm going to tell you how I have it set up to work best for me. And the primary reason I'm talking about today is because I do believe it is a useful addition to this camera, and I quite like it. I'm not going to slam it quite so hard as everybody else on the internet. In fact, I'm not going to slam it at all. Now, most of the videos and tutorials I've seen on YouTube have been quite critical about it for the fact that it is ultra sensitive to touch and it can invariably lead to changing your camera settings unintentionally or unexpectedly, and it's a real pain in the ass because yes, it did happen to me. Because you know what I did in the start is I set up my multifunction bar the way that it was recommended on the internet to me, to use it to change ISO. And yeah, sure, it works because it does change ISO, but the critics are right. It's so sensitive that every time you just touch the button, your settings change, the ISO jumps, or it jumps back to auto, or you lose that sense of control over it. So I flagged the ISO completely. ISO on the R is easy to get. You just hit the multifunction button and it's the first option. And I also have it set on my control ring on the lens, so that takes care of it for me. I don't need to set up the multifunction bar for ISO. Now, when I jump into the settings for the multifunction bar, it gives me a number of options. AF, ISO speed, white balance, check focus display info, movie recording, flexible priority AE, and then back to AF. I don't want any of those things. I mean, the only one that really jumps out initially to you is the ISO, and then secondly, the one that jumped out to me was the AF. Now, I thought that could be quite useful, and in fact, I set it to AF and I've never set it back. So I have the swipe bar set to AF, which allows me to simply swipe and change the AF type. So from here, I can go all the way down to face detect, tracking, I can go to single point AF, single expanded, and all the rest of it, single zone, and so on, just simply by touching and swiping the bar. Now, I do find hitting the bar and changing the AF points is not such a major deal because I know I can just quickly swipe it back. And in fact, I use it quite often to change between auto face detect tracking and single point AF. And it's just a really quick swipe, single point AF, swipe, face tracking, swipe, single point AF, swipe, face tracking. And it works every time for me. I very seldom hit it unintentionally. I'm more often than not changing the autofocus type I'm using anyway, so it's a really handy function that I've found to use the manual function bar. Of course, you have the option to set up the swipe of the bar left and right, but you also have the option to set the hard buttons left and right on the multifunction bar. And in fact, I have the left one off and I have the right tap set to eye detect AF. So at any point I can simply tap the right side of the multifunction bar and eye detection focus comes on. I can tap it and eye detection focus comes off. That's not a huge function because the face detect focus is such a good feature anyway, but it just gives me the ability to tap that right part of the multifunction bar and really hone in on the eye if, for instance, I'm all of a sudden starting to shoot a person with my camera. I have not had any issues shooting with the multifunction bar. I really like it there. I can feel where it is. I know what it does. It works for my AF. It's absolutely the best setting out of those available to you. So I would recommend to give it a go on your AF point settings so you can change from face detect tracking to single point focus to zone focus to whatever focus points you want to set up in your autofocus settings. Don't listen to the hype, man. It's not a bad thing. I know everyone says it's a pain in the ass, but I tell you, it's not. It actually works really, really well. So if you've been using it for ISO and following all those other tips on the internet, scrap that and change it to autofocus point select. Change it to AF, 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 and that's going to be the way. I reckon you're going to find it's a lot more versatile and handy and useful and not quite as much of a shit show as everybody else will have you believe. Hey, that was real quick today. We're just talking about that multifunction bar. I wanted to jump into the mix and say, hey, I like it. I like it. I like it. I know Canon are changing it. I know they're putting a joystick on the R5, which will probably dribble down to the R6 and whatever else, the R9 and the R1 and the RR and the RR11 and the RR99 and the, I mean, who cares? I don't mind if this is the only camera that's ever going to have it. I'm wrapped because I think the camera is flipping awesome anyway, and I actually really like the multifunction bar. So you can tick me for one in the yes box, and I'd say give it a go yourself, and let me know in the comments below what you reckon. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? Am I just like am I just talking like a massive steaming pile of fucking, I mean, am I just living in a dream world? I mean, bring me back down to earth, you know, bring me back down, crashing to earth. That's where I need to be. I need to know what you think. Put it down below. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Come on, tell me I'm wrong.